or stuff, there will be taping or video, whatever.
So it's going to be videotaped, right?
Because
or
I
just
was-
when you say internet, can you describe a little bit more into
Yeah,
it, that
I can't.
how this is going to be done?
So, good morning. Typically, what the city will do for video streaming is the city will have a contract with their cable company that they have a contract with. And part of that contract will be that they provide support for the city council meetings, so many meetings per month. So, so one of the expenses would be to have a contract with a video company to have somebody here on site for as many meetings as we would contract for. So, for example, I know talking to Helen at the City of Fullerton, they have a person that comes to, well, actually, they have a contract with their cable company. However, they pay the person for additional meetings, $500 per meeting. So if we were doing 4 meetings a month, that's $2,000 a month, $24,000 for staffing. Plus the service, there are a few different streaming services. The biggest one, a lot of agencies and cities use is Granicus. Some of you may have heard of Granicus. But then there's a few other ones, so we'd have to really do a really thorough search. And those kind of expenses can be anywhere from $18,000 to $25,000 a year as well. So we're probably looking at, I would say, an investment of maybe let's call it $50,000 to $75,000 in equipment, and then maybe up to about $50,000 a year in services.
That is on the internet. Will that be available on?
Is that the internet or is that?
That would be
local?
streaming to the internet. That's
Not
nothing to do with,
local cable TV.
no, not to local cable TV.
Now, I know there was a lot of discussion about having subcommittee meetings and things that are all recorded or audio, but can we do the same thing for these meetings to be recorded, to be put on? Because
We're being recorded.
I know we're
Yeah.
being recorded that way, but how about on the internet? How much will that cost if we have to go that way?
I'm not sure about storage. I haven't looked into the actual storage costs on the internet. However, I do want to say that we did budget for the fiscal year that just started this week to put in recording equipment, microphones, recording equipment, and a recording device in this room, so that we would have a more consistent means of recording meetings that happen in this room. So, and then as far as putting those recordings, I think General Counsel said last night, stated last night that our practice has been recordings have been for 30 days for purposes of minutes. However, should the board determine a policy to make those public on an ongoing basis, then we would just load them up on our website as we do the minutes and board agendas and some of the other.
Can we have a discussion on that item, that how we want to proceed the other meetings and make it available for, can you bring that back so we can have a board discussion on that?
Well, we were hoping to have the discussion at committee and then bring it to the next board meeting for some type of either further discussion or
Further discussion and trying to be more transparent, as the issue has been brought up many times, and I think we need to really pay attention to that and how we can address that issue.
Yeah, I've not heard from any producers in my district that have asked for this. In fact, this is the first time I've ever heard of somebody being asked for it, and I think it's, we need to be very cautious with our monies, and I have not heard anyone bringing this up ever since I've been on the board, or any civic leaders in Newport Beach or Irvine that have said so, or stakeholder producers, so I don't see a need to spend these funds. I think our meetings are public and they're recorded and they're available if anyone wants to come, and I don't see this great need to spend these funds.
Steve, all we are asking for us to, do some homework and staff to come back and give us what it's going to cost. We're not making a decision. I mean, you don't even know what the cost is.
True. So if it's, I'd like to hear back from, producers, so I guess we should just have them research it and come back when they're done with their information. Okay.
That's all I'm looking for at this point.
Sure. More information is good.
I have a question, Bruce. When I asked this went on, I was only talking about streaming the board meetings, which would be 2 meetings a month at a cost of $500 per meeting. That'd be about $1,000 a month. Would that also permit, with this internet streaming, that shows what's going on live time, then that video could be placed on the internet. That would
Yes, that would
require
be
any
all-
additional
that would be
cost,
part
would
of
it?
that service.
Okay, and then from your comments, it sounded like if we record our committee meetings, that those also could be put online so that people can avail themselves of the committee's discussions. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Would that entail much cost at all?
That's the one I'm asking that.
Some, but
give us the
I don't know off the top of my head, but not significant.
Okay.
Not significant.
It is.
The
it is-
video is more significant.
Yeah, I asked for this to be put on the agenda, and I understand that for some of the directors, this may not be something that, this may be a road they don't want to go. But this district has not been subject to the kind of scrutiny that other governmental entities are. And I will use our city as a perfect example. To my lights, the only thing that has really generated a huge amount of activity here at the district level was the power plant last December. What you experienced then was a taste of what we have been experiencing in Fullerton for the last 3 years. Public scrutiny is coming, and I believe that we need to be prepared for it. This board in June of 2012 adopted a $1.23 million budget to support the water education corridor. Education is in the title, and my presumption is that the reason that this board approved that is they want the public to know what we are doing. That effort has to take several different approaches. One is a PR thing, which is what the water education corridor is. The second is education. But what could be more important than permitting the public access to our deliberations? If that is an educational, if that is an information, then nothing is. And I would submit to you that if it costs $50,000 annually to keep the public informed, that is a pittance compared to what the overall budget of the district is, and I would ask you to seriously consider it. I think it will be upon us quickly.
I think those are all very valid points. I guess coming from a city where scrutiny is very strong, we've had to take many positions on just much more disclosure. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with being open, being transparent. In fact, sometimes the more transparent you are, the less people scrutinize you, just because there's so much information that we're being saturated with. So we've had to do a sunshine ordinance, we've had to do open calendars, open meetings, and we have Granicus, we stream our meetings. But I think for practical purposes, what I've seen, the real purpose of streaming this, I think, is just to make it accessible to the public and to our ratepayers. But what I've found is that the streaming that we do on the internet of our meetings isn't all that, isn't viewed as much as just having an archive. Because I think what people want is a record of what's done. And whether it's streaming live, most people won't access it, but if they want to access it in the future, just to review what was done, I think that's the important thing. So, if we can kind of be selective as we go through, what's the best value for us? What's the purpose of this? I think archiving achieves the purpose of disclosure, which is, I think, what we all want. I don't think anybody wants to say the more, the less transparent we are, the more the perception is that something sinister is going on. We know that's not the case. So the more open we are, I think, it addresses that point. But again, the streaming I've seen in our experience just hasn't been used as much as just folks going back and archiving it, pulling it down from some site that we may have here.
Interestingly enough, in our city, you can either turn on the television or you can stream. I have never been successful getting on the stream. It's just a disaster, and I've not had success with your city either.
Oh, I'll get it on right now. It is so simple. I'll do it right now.
But I've tried with some of them. I called and they said yes, it's there. So frankly, I'm not willing to support this right now until I know exactly what we're spending. Do any other water districts do this? What exactly? I think you have a good summation of where we're going and why we would want to do it. But I want a lot more information. Saying something is anywhere between 15 and 50, and then I asked some questions and they said, think more about 100,000 plus. And so I would like a lot more information than this to ever vote on something like this. I just don't feel comfortable with it. There's a huge difference between 15 and 50. And then when I asked further, our city and some of the other cities, it's said, well, that may be, but it's really. And so I want to know really what it really is. I want some kind of policy, and maybe we need to start looking at our board policy. Where are we going? What we want to do? And I came from a city, Kate, I didn't have any problem with television on. I never even thought about it much. But I knew what the costs were, and frankly, it was there before I came, so I didn't have to appropriate that money. But I'm not comfortable with, well, maybe this and maybe that, and then it may be this every year, and I like a lot more information than that. I'd like to know who else has it, particularly water districts, because water districts are a little different from city halls, so I'd like to know how it works, where they're going. I want to know just from us, what is our policy? Where are we going to go? Do we want to do this? And I'm sorry, I've gotten on your city a couple of times when somebody's asked me to watch this, and neither one I was successful. And I called, and then I asked some of the people, and they said no, it's down there. So ours, it's the same.
We had a flood in June, and our whole system was wiped out. In fact, the new system is being installed this month, and our first city council meeting with the new system will be August 1st. But for years prior, we did do that. But in June last year, we had a big flood, wiped everything out in the city council chamber. That's the reason why it's been down.
Well, then let's wait. Let's see if a flood affects it. Where do we put it that it won't flood? All those things that go into a decision like this. But I'm not ready to support it right now until I have a lot of questions.
Well, I think another thing that would be interesting to know is not only with water districts, but how effective the streaming is and what they figure the usage is. They have to have some idea as to, is the money they're spending really that beneficial? And is it,
Having an archive is a good.
We're not being asked to make that kind of decision. We're not being asked to appropriate a budget or anything, but staff is asking for direction from us since I raised it. I agree with you. I think that we need to pin down costs more specifically before the board can take action. But in principle, I think this is a direction that we should be going, whether or not other water districts are doing it. This is the way of the future. There's a lot more information available, and I think that we can be a leader in this regard, whether or not any other water agency or special district is doing it. As you know, there have been many, many newspaper articles about special districts such as OCWD that fly below the radar. We have desalinization coming up that is going to generate a great deal of public curiosity, scrutiny, and I think we need to prepare for that. So I would ask that this committee recommend that staff be directed to pin down the expenses, not only just for internet streaming, but also the place we certainly need to be putting our committee meeting discussions. We need to make that available to the public for much longer than 30 days. There's not a reason in the world why we can't start preserving those recordings of committee discussions to be kept forever. There's no reason why it should terminate in 30 days.
Director Flory, so I'm going to summarize what you're asking for is giving staff to go back and do their homework and bring it back to us.
Yes.
That this is a good process of, whatever, to go on to the internet streaming, and what is the hard cost is going to be, and what are the other water agency and how they have done their business on this similar thing. And know, once you bring it back, the hard cost, and we will have the same discussion to see if we want to go that direction. And because of course, at the end of the day, it's all about the cost. And at the same time, how do you archive these, you know, for future?
And finally, I think I want to put a coda on this, and it would simply be this. I don't know how the board can justify $1.23 million for what is essentially a public relations effort and not open up our discussions, our board meetings to the public, because at the end of the day, that is far more instructive, far more educational, and includes the public far more than water education court.
To my mind, it's a huge difference. Because we thought about this for 20 years, doing this hallway. Wasn't it
Well,
20 years?
it's really the beginning and a portion of what, as Phil has always wanted, is our visitor center. Because, you know, you get a record of all the tours that we do and the people that come here.
We have tours from all over the world.
Yeah.
Including many, many
I get
schools.
that, and I
And that's
actually-
why it's there.
I
Not for
preface
PR,
my
not for
remarks by
PR.
saying
Not for PR.
that public outreach takes many forms.
Yeah.
And it is public relations, it's information, it's education, but at base, it's also what happens at this district
But
level.
the hall is really kind of the forerunner
See,
and
it's
would be
all
tied into
part of the
eventually
same
a
thing.
visitor center.
It's public outreach, all of it together.
Director Shawn.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate the comments of Director Flory and saying all this. I believe that our staff is very busy right now on legislation and a lot of other immediately pressing items. I do not want to direct their attention away from that, so I think we should table this item. And I've prepared, so I will make a motion that we're time on the committee, that we will table the item to be brought up at a future time.
Move in second, and is that including the hard costs and everything, what it's gonna cost us?
I think
to do that?
we have a lot of things that is mentioned, the various bills that our staff is working on, a lot of other programs that we're working on. I think we should just let that, there's a very active legislative session right now. And so my motion is to table the item at a future time, which it was our pleasure we can bring it back up. They're very busy right now.
And Mr. Chair, I'm going to respectfully disagree with that motion. I can't support it because I've taken a position at my city council that openness, there's nothing wrong with especially directing staff just to research this a little bit further. So out of respect,
I respect-
to you, just to give you an explanation, I don't want to be inconsistent with my positions I've taken.
I
as a
understand,
member
and
of
I don't
council.
do this.
Is that your substitute motion?
Well, we can go ahead and take
Okay.
the motion.